I hope you can all hear me all right. Just give it a second here and we'll get started. Okay, looks like everyone is muted, so that's good. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the webinar. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about getting organized for more success. And this is a topic I think that a lot of people have interest in. I know I do, because I realize how important it is to be organized, and so many of us don't feel like we are, I think, a lot of the time. So today I want to just kind of touch on some topics regarding organization, and I hope to inspire you a little bit to think about how you can use some of these ideas in your own world, in your dojo, in your home, in your life, to help you be a little bit more inspired to be organized and get the benefits of that. And at the end of this topic today, at the end of the presentation, I'm going to open up an opportunity for you to ask some questions, and we can talk a little bit more in depth if you have something that comes up during the presentation. And also, I will put my contact information at the end. So if you have a question or you want to get in touch with me on something specific related to your situation, I would be more than happy to make myself available to you. There's a lot of great ideas and things that I'd love to go into detail on today, but unfortunately, we only have limited time, and I'm really not going to be able to delve too much into the little things, although I have a tendency to like the details. So we can always address those items based on your situation, and I'd be happy to go into a lot more detail if there's something that sparks your interest from this presentation today. So thank you for joining us. First off, let's talk about what exactly is organization. The term organized is defined as having one's affairs in order so as to deal with them efficiently. Things are ordered, they're well run, they're well regulated, systematic, structured. So that's sort of the definition of being organized, getting organized. Organized also means you're getting on top of your business game, and you're taking responsibility to direct your thoughts and your emotions towards the actions needed to bring about a desired outcome. Being organized is actually giving yourself the gift of time and the gift of freedom. I don't think sometimes we realize just how wonderful things can be when there is order in our lives. Freedom comes when we have a goal or an evolution to work toward, and a system is in place with habits that support the system. Once our thoughts and emotions are mobilized toward a goal, our energies will move in one direction, and our ability to create and bring about what we want to achieve most becomes possible for us. When we're organized, we basically are empowering ourselves to become the creator of our own success story. The structure that we've established, along with the actions that we take and good task management, are the roadmap that are going to get us there. Now, we talked a little bit about goals and evolutions with Mr. Trent Zappin in our very first webinar and how important those are. And then we followed that up with Mr. Bob Diamant's presentation on task management. This kind of dovetails along because you need all of that to go with this, or rather, organizing yourself actually really helps with reaching your goals and evolutions, and follows right into the task management aspect. This is all kind of going to come a little bit full circle. Now, Benjamin Franklin was very famous for his quotes on being organized and managing time. He's the one who said, "For every minute spent organizing, an hour is earned." Did you know that statistics show that the average worker loses an hour a day of productive time being disorganized? Well, that's a lot of time for me, I know, in my life, and in many of us. We can't really afford to lose an hour of time of productivity. Getting organized is both a physical and a mental and emotional process, too. I think a lot of times people don't realize just how much our mind and emotions are involved in this. One way we can start to be more organized is to do things that are physically moving stuff. Because we don't operate in a vacuum, when we make a physical change in our life, be it just moving something in the room or reorganizing a drawer, let's say, anything small or large, you're going to have some sort of an impact. And it may not be evident right away, but over time, especially when you're creating a system that supports your goals, you're going to notice a big difference. It's because we don't operate in a vacuum. So we do have a cause and effect thing going on there. Sometimes it's just easier to make an impact when we physically move something around. Much more than cleaning a room. A lot of times people think organizing is just cleaning a room, but really it's about finding a home or a place for everything that you have. Now, clutter is something that's kind of a big deal for a lot of people. Clutter is a collection of things that are lying about in an untidy mass, basically. Clutter just congests our environment, and it actually stagnates and slows down the chi or the energy in the room. So not only is it potentially more difficult to find things, but we might actually feel a certain level of stress when we're around too much clutter. When we're surrounded by physical clutter, also, it's kind of like being surrounded by boulders. Boulders are those random items, the unhandled papers, the sticky notes, unopened mail, stuff that just kind of steals our energy away from the more important tasks at hand. And if you're constantly spending time searching for items that you need, moving things around on your desk, looking for the phone, I know I personally lose my phone at home quite a bit if I don't set it in the place I know where it needs to be. And sure enough, I don't have the home number, so when I misplace my phone, it's sometimes not easy to find if I don't have someone at home to call me. So having one place to put things is actually really important. That's how we create an environment where we can have productivity and where creativity and positive energy flow. And so just like clutter can kind of rob us of that, it also can, when we remove the clutter, it can actually open up the space for us to free our energy to flow. So we can be more positive and focused on the things that help our mind develop those clear and positive ideas. So just by physically moving things out of the space and actually ordering the things around you, you're creating a flow of energy in your space, whether it be in your dojo, in your office, at your home. It really does make a big difference. So I would recommend each day just set aside a few minutes to look around your space and remove some of the clutter that might be sitting there. It just might be certain things that you have out that really don't need to be there. And think of it this way, just like you have an address where you live, the things you own should also have an address as well. There should be a home for everything. Papers should be living in their very own organized file folders. Your phone should be plugged into the charging station. You can find things when they have a place where they belong. It's easy to retrieve them. You're not wasting positive energy investing in searching for an item. So those are all really good ideas, is to find a home for the things that are around you. How many times have we ever set down our keys or our cell phone, and then when we need it, it wasn't there to be found? Looking around for misplaced items exudes time and stress and energy. And by physically ordering them, I obviously get the point, is going to make a big difference. Now, when I first started working with Hanshi Turner here at Irvine 1, I noticed that sometimes he would come in the door and he would have his sunglasses and his keys and his watch and things like that, and he would set them down, and sometimes in different places. And I have a tendency to do that as well. So we kind of figured out a plan to help keep our back office more organized, and so we wouldn't have to look for these things. So we got basically just like a plastic bin with each of our names on it. So now when we come in the door, all of these miscellaneous items basically go into that bin, so it's easy to find them, and it just helps keep the back office a lot tidier. And that way, when we're distracted or whatever, we know that they're right where we want them to be. It's just a catch-all. Another thing that happens with people is they have a lot of papers that flow into their life. Now, maybe not so much anymore because we live in more of a technology world, but paper is still a huge amount of clutter that can come in. In fact, it's one of the biggest areas for clutter. So we just need to tame that paper tiger. We need to set up a system for the papers that come into our life, so when they fly in, we know what to do with them. It's better to keep your system simple, so you'll be more likely to follow through with it too. Now, what we do at our dojo is we use one of these stacking bin folder things here. You can see in the picture. Basically, it's just like a stacking file box at our dojo. We actually have one with 4 trays, and it's very easy to use. Each file or tray is labeled. We have one that says "Do It Now," which is the urgent items that come in the door, things that you just have to address right away. They need our immediate attention. We've got a follow-up file, which is the one usually below, for items that we want to, take a little bit of time to review and eventually respond on. That might be, maybe someone wants a donation for their school or something. You don't have to do it today, but you do want to make sure it doesn't slip away. So that's a good spot to put it in. We also have a tray for Zen Planner. And that's because, like just yesterday, we had several people come in and sign up, thankfully. And so in the middle of teaching and all the things we're doing, I didn't have time to sit and enter everything in. So we put those entries to be done tonight into the Zen Planner folder or tray, and that allows us to address, sign-ups, issues, people changing address, whatever we might have to do at the end of the day, so we're using our time a little bit more efficiently. And last but not least, we have a to be filed pile, and that's so for all those little things, the things that are done that we want to file into an archive at some point. And, it can just sit there for a while. It doesn't have to go anywhere right away, but at least because we have separated out the papers by importance, whatever's flowing into the office is going to be addressed accordingly, and it allows us to make sure that we're not missing anything. Nothing falls through the cracks. It seems pretty simple, but it's extremely effective. And I would highly recommend, if you're not using some sort of a basic filing system like this, right out in the open, where you can address these items, that you actually take a look at that, because it's really, really valuable. You can get these trays at any local office supply retailer, and they work really well. Also, when I say clear the clutter, I'm talking about not just handling your papers and giving everything an address. I'm talking about creating a support system or a structure that, in place with your daily habits, will help you get a little bit closer to achieving your goals. Because it's those habits that we form and the procedures that we follow that are going to take us where we want to go. Now, some of the physical tools we may use to help with creating a structure for ourselves is, say, a calendar. Everybody uses a calendar, or a planner, or maybe you like a smartphone. Some people have a special filing cabinet system they use, or desktop organizers, or even a program like Zen Planner, for example. These are all part of what I call tools in our organizing toolbox, I guess you can say. So all of these things play a role in helping us get more set up, helping us get the foundation or the structure in place that will help us along with our task management steps each day, to move closer towards the goals that we've set for ourselves. When we set up these regular habits or actions, and we make use of the tools in our toolbox that are the items at our disposal, and we keep on top of our calendar, for example, or we take the time to go over our goals and evolutions and attend to our task list at the same time every day, we're basically setting ourselves up for greater success. Because a lot of us are visual, at least I know I am, we may want to have things right in front of us too, so we can know where they are. Now, when I first came to Irvine 1, the back office looked a lot different, and I realized that if we can put some sort of a physical order into our environment, that we will reduce a lot of stress. And when everything has a place, we'll know how to find it. And it's largely about creating habits too. We have to create the habit to support the system we put in place. It has to be simple and easy enough for us to maintain, so that we can keep it up, because otherwise it's not going to work for us. So whatever system you put in place needs to be something that you can manage each day, and it will help you in the long run. A small investment of time is worth so much. So what we did here is, if you can see in this photo, the back office was just a little bit messy. There were shelves, there was a file cabinet, we had some areas for display. We also had a need for, the ability to eat, because we're always busy during the day, and I wanted to make sure that we could prioritize being able to get some food. So these are all different things that we wanted to kind of create out of this back office space, and we wanted it to function better. We wanted paper to flow through it better. So we decided to make some changes. So Master Turner and I talked about, how we could best organize this. So first thing we did was pull everything out. We painted, basically. And then we put everything back in an orderly fashion that would support the different things we wanted to accomplish in that room. So this is just kind of a look at it. We wanted to have a little bit more, functionality. So we made some changes. We created a system for the way that we worked in the space that would support our productivity goals. As you can see, it's now clutter-free. This unit that you see in there was actually something that he purchased from a neighbor who was selling it. It was very inexpensive, and just happened that it would work really well in the space. So we basically just sort of set it all up so it really functions well in here now. We configured like a little kitchen area, I guess you could say, with a fridge and a microwave together. We put a shelf above with like plates and utensils and stuff in like a storage bin. We have dry snacks so we can grab and go, so we can eat when we're, on the run. We even keep a frozen meal or two, some, taquitos or things like that in the freezer. So if we're in a rush, we can just microwave something really quickly and it's good to go. But everything in this space now functions really well. If you need a Band-Aid, there's a drawer for that with all the Band-Aids and the BioFreeze and whatever is all in one space. So when you put like items with each other, it also helps you to find things and it helps things work more efficiently. So this office space now is what it looks like. It's very functional. We even have kids sometimes come and go, does somebody live in there? Because it has sort of a homey feel. It looks almost like a tiny home back there. So, but this space is really working well for us now. Another thing I'll suggest for you guys is that clutter is not always just a physical thing. We think of it as stuff that's around us, but sometimes our minds can be cluttered as well. There really is such a thing as headspace. I mean, when you're in the middle of something, an article, an idea, marketing things, grocery lists, tasks of every sort, you've got all these things in your head. Write it down. It just really helps it to get out of your head and onto a piece of paper where you can save it. I do this throughout the day when I'm at the dojo. I keep a pad of paper at two ends of the dojo, and then when someone comes and talks to me, or I have to follow up with something, or a parent wants Hanshi to call back, or something to happen, goes on that we need to address later, we just write it down. I just write it down so I can kind of keep a little bit of a log, and then I can address things without having 1,000 sticky notes everywhere. And it gives us an opportunity to kind of keep a little bit of an archive as well of our day. That way, if someone comes back to talk to me later, I know what day it was. I flip through. I can, basically keep that information all in one place, and it's very, very handy. Now, it's also really helpful to clear your mind at night. Like, for example, we had a student come in, and she is a prosecuting attorney in Los Angeles, and she was having a really hard time sleeping because she has so much on her mind, as you can imagine, and she wasn't making it to her lesson. So what we had to do basically is we were just constantly rescheduling her, and I didn't want her to, obviously go away, and she loves it. So I had suggested to her, why don't you keep a pad of paper by the side of your bed and just write everything down before you go to sleep. And she's like, I never thought of that. She's trying everything she can to get to sleep, not realizing that if she would just, write some things down, that it would probably make a huge difference for her and her peace of mind. And she did. She came back and said it worked amazingly well. It's something so simple, but that's how it happened to me a couple of times when I'm waking up in the night. I find that a lot of times I'm trying really hard not to forget things I need to do or make sure to take care of. If I just write it down, even if it's in the middle of the night, it just frees up my mind to go back to sleep. And oftentimes the next day I wake up and look and go, I would have totally forgotten that if I hadn't written it down. So don't underestimate the power of jotting down a note. It can really do a lot to clear the clutter from your mind as well. And that helps free your energy as well. Free your mind and the rest will follow, as they say. I was going to say, we learned in Mr. Trent Zappin's webinar about setting goals, as he likes to call them, evolutions, about writing them down, about applying them. We went on with Mr. Bob Diamond's webinar on task management, how you're actually making sure you're addressing the items that you need to do each day and moving those steps towards your goals. Each of these items, each of these tasks are going to dramatically impact your level of success. You're basically creating stepping stones that lead you to the top of your mountain, but first you have to know what they are. So we need to create clarity around our vision of what we're trying to accomplish, and that will help us backtrack out and figure out what systems we need to put in place within our dojo. Are you having a hard time like we did getting to items in a back closet because we've always done it that way? We were basically having a hard time always getting in the back to grab out pads and things like that because they were hidden in the back in a closet. They weren't easy access, yet we had always done it that way. So we never stopped to think how we could make it better because that's just how we always did it. Sometimes if you can look at things with new eyes and think through how you're working in your dojo now, things might really change for you if you can just make a couple of simple adjustments. So let's see how getting organized can really help us in more of an internal way. Now, a lot of times people have vision boards or goal boards, things like that. We have one. Ours is a little different though. Just like I said, looking at things with new eyes. If you put your goals out in front of you, if you have a plan that's visual, it's very helpful to people. It's really helpful to keep it at the forefront. We have our vision board, I guess, I call it a dashboard, on the back of the door inside of the office. It's helpful because every time we go in and out, we have to take a look at our goals. We have to see, where we're at. And even though this is here, if we weren't interacting with it like we are every day, it'd be very easy for us to maybe just walk right by it and eventually not notice it, just like anything else. We have to take new eyes to everything. Well, to fix that, we've kind of created more of an interactive board here. What we did is we created, as you can see, kind of like stickers, I guess. I don't know if you can see on the first view. This is what I call the tote board. It says, how are we tracking? Basically, these are stickers, and every time we get a new student, I get to put a sticker on there. And it's like a child's star chart or something, but it's really fun. It's fun to watch the stickers accumulate. We also write down their name on one of the lists there. It's hard for you to see up front, so I'm just going to kind of touch on it lightly. And that way it corresponds to the person that we signed up. So we always know what order everybody came in throughout the year, but also by interacting with that board every day, it keeps us fresh and on top of it. And we know at a glance exactly where we are. So we also have different ones. I've taken photos at different points after I just, made the board. I like to take a picture, but we also have on there what I call our referral stars board. And what that is a list of who referred who, and it's right in front of our face. So we always know who those high referral people are, and it's really helpful so that they're always in the forefront of your mind. Some people have special programs that they've implemented. We are in the process of organizing a referral program, in fact. That's going to hopefully make a big difference as far as, inspiring people to refer more students to us. As you can see in that little circular photo, that's one of the stickers. I just made these stickers myself. You can use stars from, the regular office supply store. You can make your own stickers. There's sticker paper. I can help you with that type of thing. But it's just fun. It's a fun way to interact. And we also usually set like a tone for our year. Our theme this year is grow and thrive. We always want to grow and we always want to thrive. This year we want to do it in a different and more inspiring way. You can also put your own personal goals up there if there's something that you want to achieve or for your team. So I would encourage you to use the back of the door of your office as an interactive dashboard. It's a lot different than just leaving it there. You're actually interacting with it, and it makes a big, big difference. So it's difficult sometimes to know where to get started. I would suggest that everybody just pick one area, even if it's just a drawer. Pick one area that matters, that you can have some success in. A big part of it is actually just initiating the effort, whether it be physically ordering a space, maybe just your desk, or maybe, like I said, a drawer, making like a first aid drawer, or maybe it's that closet that's been driving you crazy. Find a way to just get started and you'll find the ball starts rolling. It's funny because also if you set the system up right, whether it be a physical system like, how you're going to, process your mail, or whether it be an internal system like how you're going to handle, your morning, or how you think about things or how you're going to respond to things, that you can set yourself up for success by setting it up in advance and by just making a plan and getting started. Half of the battle is actually just executing and beginning. But you don't operate in a vacuum, as I said before, so you create energy when you actually move forward and take action. Just start making a physical change is what I'm saying is a good way to start. Hang up some pads on the wall. Get a set of plastic drawers to put your Bushido patches in. Clean out your display case. Even just doing something like that can really start to create some momentum. And parents can be wonderful helpers, by the way. If you create enough community in your dojo, you're going to find that there's parents that are going to be willing to jump on board and help you with a lot of these tasks. And it can help immensely just because they want to be part of something bigger. Now, I want to show you a cabinet here. This is an area in our dojo where there's a shoji screen in the back. And that shoji screen was extra storage. It wasn't initially designed for that. It was meant to be kind of decorative, but it ended up kind of holding back all of that stuff that you see on the left-hand side. It was like a nice shelf with all this extra stuff. We didn't know what to do with it. No one could tell it was like that, but we knew. It wasn't very functional. So we took steps to make this change, and it has changed the whole feeling of the dojo, believe it or not. Even though no one knew it was back there, it's just created such a different energy around things. And plus, the functionality is so enjoyable right now. We got one of those cabinets from IKEA, and now we have all of our pads and things that we used to store back in the closet that I mentioned earlier where we couldn't get to it. They're all right here, accessible at the ready, and it just changes everything. We actually found that there were so many things we weren't using, great, tools, ladders, things like that, that we had stuffed back there that we didn't even know was back there because we couldn't get to it. But since we'd always done it that way, we didn't change it. So anyway, just make a simple change. It can make such a difference. If you look at things with new eyes. The other thing is take a look at it from the perspective of a new student too. When someone walks in the door, they're looking at your dojo a lot differently than you are. I'll tell you an example here. For example, this is the way Irvine 1 looked when I first came here, and it had always been this way for a really long time. And as you can see in the first photo, there's not a whole lot of people sitting in there. And I know sometimes we don't want parents hanging out, maybe at least in the past, but I think that you're missing an opportunity if you don't create an inviting space for people to hang out. The reason being is that you create a culture and a community that starts to really support you when you let people become involved. And when parents are allowed to stay and be there, they attract more people, and it just grows from there. So we looked here and we saw nobody's sitting in here, and I wonder why. Well, it's kind of a cold feeling. You see there's nothing to sit on. The benches are just wood. It's on top of a wood tile floor. It's not super inviting right now. So what we did is we set a goal to try to create a more warm and inviting culture where people wanted to stay so that we could start to, expand the business. And that started with something simple like just redoing our little lobby. Now, we didn't have to do a whole lot as far as, spending money. It was a little bit, a can of paint, some ideas, but more taking a look at it with fresh eyes, the eyes of a student that would come in. So what we did is we started to think, as a parent's perspective, if I'm waiting here 3 times a week, what kind of environment could I offer? Do you know that I came into the dojo as a parent initially? I had 2 little boys. I was in 3 times a week, not in our school, but in the San Juan Capistrano school. And you spend a lot of time there, and you're spending money there. So if you can create a more welcoming environment for the parent to hang out, you're going to really benefit from that. You're going to get that sense of community as they start to bond with other parents. They're going to want to help you. It's just going to make a huge world of difference. So what we did is we went ahead and painted, and I'll show you some pictures of the next picture. We painted the walls a little warmer color. We put cushions on. We put a rug so that the wood isn't, hitting the tile from the coffee table. We provided a coffee maker. We went ahead and thought about the parents that come in with little kids and the other child doesn't have anything to do. Maybe they're too young to train or to participate yet. Or maybe it's an intro and you're trying to get this older child signed up, but the little kid that's there is so, busy that the parent can't focus enough to sign up right now with you. And they might want to come back because the little daughter or son is distracting them. This is a perfect reason to put in the coloring program that I often talk about, where you can download and print out coloring pages on the internet for the cost of a piece of paper. And you can pick up at the Dollar Tree, let's say, some markers or crayons and give the other kids something to do. So there's lots of little things you can do that are going to change the feeling and the culture of your dojo just by making small changes, by looking at it with fresh eyes, by thinking about what your goal is, and by figuring out how you can make small changes to a physical place like this that will help with those internal systems that you're trying to create. It created a warmer experience, let's just say. And when people are waiting now, we have a packed house most of the time. And that's great because that brings more friends in, that helps people gel. I've had parents who want to stay because they're friends with the other parents. Even if the kid is wavering in his interest, it has kept many students, retained students because of the sense of community that comes about. But that was a goal of ours, to create that. If that's one of your goals, I'd be happy to talk with you about it. We can always talk at a later time and talk about your specific goals, and I'll see if there's some, suggestions and ideas I have that can help you. It's more than just like, ordering the physical space. We took some time. It just makes such a big difference. That's all I can say. I'm trying to jump around here. And by creating an inviting culture around the dojo, it just really changes everything. So if you can go in and take a look and just think about, if you were a parent, what would you want to do? It's not so much about the physical changes, but really thinking through the process of what you're trying to achieve, and then, making your list to create that. Here's a beautifully organized space. This belongs to the Cypress Dojo, to Mario. I borrowed his photo. I hope it's okay. Basically, here's just some ideas you can implement to start. Make your goals and evolutions the North Star that you follow day in and day out. Make them realistic and inspiring, and keep them constantly in front of you and remind you where you're headed. I would always have a calendar and maintain it. Set your priorities, just like Mr. Diamant talked about with your task list and that type of thing. Tie up your loose ends and clean up your clutter every day. That makes such a difference. And look at things in a new way. And think of how you can create more efficiency in your space too. How paper flows through your office. How people move about in your dojo. Are you doing things because you've always done them before? Is there a better way you could do something? So when you take another look at it, I think you're going to find there's got to be some area you could select where you could start, even if it is just a drawer, like I said. Don't let organizing be a daunting task. Just take a look around and see how you can get started. Pick one space, and I'll be happy to help you if there's anything I can do to suggest or, be there to support you. And I'll set aside some time if you want to talk. We just had to hit kind of a high level here. It's not like there's a million ideas and things we could talk about, but obviously we don't have enough time. But anyway, I'd like to open it up now if you have any questions about anything you've seen or just want to talk a little bit more about it. It seems like I have a lot of ideas and there's just, not enough time to go into them. So let me see if I can unmute everybody and you can talk with me. Let's muted myself. Okay. Is everybody there? Does anybody have any questions or comments? I don't know if this is working. I guess it is. Anyone?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Who is this?
Oh, this is Steve from Costa Mesa. Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for being on the show. Just kidding. Hi, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Great speech so far, and a great presentation, and I really like it. Because I'm an artist, I'm constantly trying to reorganize myself and the dojo, so I liked a lot of the stuff. Ever since I was a teenager, I always had like a little ceramic bowl that I always kept, that every day when I got home and I took my stuff out of my pockets, I'd always put it in that bowl. That way I always do my car keys, my wallet, receipts, pocket change, whatever. So that's always helped me. And getting back to like the organization of the dojo, it's a constant thing, because the more you get comfortable with one way, the more you see that it may not be the best way. There's like 10 ways to solve a problem, and we always get stuck on one, like you say, that I'm constantly like, I put J hooks on the wall for my pad so it's easier to get to instead of being in the back and having to like leave the class for that 10 or 15 seconds. You're still in the same room, so that way you keep the energy flowing, making it more comfortable for the parents up front, things like that. Just enough for the people who want to stay can stay. If not, then you don't want to make it cluttered as well. So yeah, I'm constantly trying to make the dojo continue to grow. It's kind of like a tree. It's like, not to be a pun intended with our logo, but it's kind of like the tree. If you just let it sit there and not do anything to it, it's eventually just gonna get old and die. But if you continue to maintain it like from the back to the front as much as you can, that also keeps you busy. Because I know we always have extra time as instructors. And everyone says we're busy, and I'm busy too, but there's always time that we can put aside to kind of like redo something, reorganize something. And it kind of makes you feel a little bit better about the dojo, because we're here so much that you don't ever want to feel like you're in a dungeon. And we've all been there, but if you can make it more comfortable for yourself and others, it doesn't seem to be like so much like work. You know what I mean?
Right. And just the whole idea, like with the food thing, so often people, oh, they didn't eat. I know we've done it before where we go all day with nothing. And it's like, well, we have this refrigerator and we have this microwave. Let's set up like a little area in the back office so that we can make sure that we get food, and even if it's just something quick, you're setting yourself up to succeed And sometimes we don't think about things. It's the unthought of, it's taking the time to think through how you operate and what you might need. Now we never go hungry because we've prepared for that, but we had to sort of put a system in place to make sure that happened. It sounds like you've done a good job. I know your dojo is very organized from what I've seen, but even so, we can always look into it and see things in a new way. But I love that you're using the bowl idea. It's actually really effective, isn't it?
It is. I've used it literally since I was a teenager because I've been so disorganized since I was a kid from being an artist and so whimsical and like, yay, like I didn't have a lot of structure. I didn't structure myself until I was a teenager. And then if you just do the smart things, like you clean a little bit every day and you find a place to put your stuff, it's very, very hard to lose stuff.
It is. It's more just establishing at the beginning, I'm going to make this spot. I know this sounds so simple in some ways. It seems extremely basic, and it is, yet it is hard to do it sometimes. But if you just make a place for everything, make a home for everything, like you're saying, it makes such a huge difference. We are all different. You being an artist, there's all different personalities. Some people like things around them. Some people, like my husband's a psychologist and goes into this whole thing with, ivy doesn't grow straight up the wall. It meanders. Everybody's got their own way of doing things, but you have to find a system that works for you, because otherwise we can sabotage ourselves or set ourselves back or waste time and energy we don't need to, simply because we didn't plan for that. We didn't create, you were smart and got a bowl, ours is a plastic bin. It's simple, but yet it's not.
Yeah. And on the snack things, I always keep snack bars in the back and things like that, not just for me and the assistants, but sometimes the kids. Like just last week, I had one of my teens who, she loves cheerleading. She doesn't love karate as much as cheerleading, but mom wants her to take karate. She thinks it's important, and she enjoys it too, but it's not her first thing. Well, she didn't eat lunch properly, or whatever the case may be, so she's all upset. She's crying. And when it came down to it, when I talked to her and found out that was the case, I was like, look, you got to be responsible for yourself and eat. You're old enough. Just hang out in the lobby, call mom, and I'll get you something from the back. And by the time mom came back from her, shopping in the parking lot, I already had a couple of snack bars in her hand saying she didn't eat properly, but, I gave her a little speech, but, I also wanted to give her something to snack on. And that's just, even though it's a small thing, it's kind of huge for the parents' point of view, because it's kind of like, you're not just being stern with the kid and saying like, look, you got to eat. You've been doing cheerleading for 5 hours, 6 hours straight, and you didn't eat lunch, and now you want to come to karate. But you also reinforce like, hey, here's something to snack on. Wait for mom. If you feel better, right, come back in. But that way, you seem prepared for everything. We always have to be prepared for everything.
I appreciate that you're saying that, because that's really true, and that's just really an extension of being organized, is thinking through for what are the possibilities. Luis, you had a question, right? I want to make sure we get to that. Thank you, Steve, for your comments.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Hi, I can hear you.
Great. Okay, so I wanted to thank you so much for the presentation. It was wonderful, and I actually like this a lot. This is one of the things that I believe it's important for all of us as entrepreneurs to have in our studios. But I did have a question and a comment. So my comment is, there are not second chances for a first impression. So I always like that saying, because when you have somebody come into your studio, like you were commenting, you can't change their mind as soon as they walk in. They walk in, they have their first impression, they see your studio, they see how it's made, and sometimes they made up their mind right there and then. So my question was, how important would you rate this, like organizing your studio and keeping it clean and having all these systems? How important do you think it is, and for all of us as instructors, to keep in mind that this is something that we need to do? How important would you rate that as? Say, teaching is one thing, but organizing is another. Where is organization on your studio and cleanliness of your studio? Where would you rate that?
I rate it very high, but you bring, I don't know exactly what number I would give, but you bring up a really important point. You don't have a second opportunity to make a first impression. So that might mean that you might want to start taking a look at the area where people walk in. That might be a great first place to take a look. Go in with fresh eyes, or have a friend or someone you trust come in and tell you. Maybe it's a family member it hasn't been in there, or somebody who can help look at it differently. I know I used to work for a company that sold like janitorial supplies and facilities stuff, and they would always say that people should go in, and it's true, sit down on the toilet in the stall and take a look at the floor and see, because the people who clean there and do their things every day don't look at it from the perspective of someone going into that restroom. I know that's kind of a crude analogy, but it's the same thing. I've heard stories of mothers coming into the dojo, and before they will even talk to somebody, they go back and look at the bathroom. They ask to use the bathroom so they can see the situation in there, and whether or not that they can, trust that this is a safe and clean place for their child. So you never know what someone's looking for or what's going to be their, what's going to bother them. But so I would say it's really important, because first impression is what's going to get them in the door. Your teaching and how you do all of that's going to be what they love and keep them. That might be why they walked in, but making sure that, their impression is good all the way around, I think is really important. You just never know. Someone could walk out the door because your bathroom's not clean, not because you're not a great teacher. It's just everybody's different. But since you're operating a public place, you're operating a business, you want to put your best foot forward. So I would definitely think to look, if I were starting to organize, the word organizing is daunting too. If I were looking at how I could improve my place, I would start with where they walk in the door. What does it look like? What's it feel like? So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's really important.
It does. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry for the long ramble.
This is Bob Diamant.
Hi. Hello.
First time caller, long time fan.
I'm a fan of you.
I love you, Bob.
I did want to just chime in on that. I'm in 100% agreement with everything you've said so far. I try to keep an organized dojo, but you got to prune the tree. Like Steve said, you got to stay on top of it. It's
right.
Something you need to do on a regular basis. And one of the things that Master Linton used to have us do back in Utah back in the 80s, one of the things he taught us was when you walk into your studio at the beginning of the day, pretend like you're a customer and walk around and look at the studio and find things wrong. You got to go through when you walk in the door and try to find things wrong, because there is no second chance to make that first impression. But it's not necessarily.
Did we lose you?
Sorry, I got cut off there. It's not necessarily a conscious thing that people look around and like, this place has no discipline. But subconsciously, if it's dirty, if it's unorganized, if it's clutter, it gives the impression of no discipline.
Right.
And most of our people come for discipline.
I agree.
I'm going to mute my mic and listen to what you have to say.
I completely agree with that. I mean, perception is reality for people. It's hard to maintain it too. Like for us, we have a lot of people coming in the door. It's a constant battle to constantly keep it sort of clean and at a place where it's presentable. But that's the first thing every day that we do, is go through and make sure. And that should be the last thing you do too, is that's just the ordering the physical space, but setting it up in advance for people to have a good experience is something that takes a little, foresight, and then maintaining it so that they continue to have that kind of experience. I think that's really important. You're right. Go around and look at it with new eyes, like someone else who would walk in the door. We almost are out of time, but I wanted to see that. I think Master Tomasello, you had a comment, right?
Yeah, you know what? Now that I've just listened to you guys talk, it's pretty much just compounding on what you guys all just said. What people need to realize is that when somebody walks into your dojo, because I talk to a lot of women who come in the door, and I ask them questions. I'm pretty blunt. What did you like about the dojo? Is there something that, doesn't work for you, whatever? One of the number one things is one of the reasons that they signed up at our school is because it was clean. They go to dojos all the time when they were first checking dojos out, because they don't know anything about martial arts per se. And they would walk in and it looked like a gym. It smelled. There are a bunch of, big guys working out and grunting and stuff. They don't want their kids around that. Okay. So we present ourselves as the family dojos. We do, for the most part. And yes, I have a ton of adults. About 25% of my dojo is adults. But still, mainly for most of us, we're going to get the kids in the door. And the kids are going to come in the door because of the moms. And they are going to check the bathrooms. And they are going to be looking around to see what a mess the dojo is. And remember that the dojo, for pretty much, is a reflection of you as a person. So if you can live in chaos, if your dojo smells, if they just see things thrown everywhere, that is their first impression, like Christine already brought up, of you. And people, we're trying to teach discipline. And if we're not disciplined enough to take care of our appearance and to take care of our dojo's appearance, how are we going to teach children that? That's
true. You're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. So, and I agree. Well, it's not always easy to do, but it's not really as hard as we might think either. If we just start with something small, the only way to eat an elephant is to do so one bite at a time. So a big thing like your entire dojo might seem daunting, but maybe just start with the space when you walk in the door. What do they look at? What do they see? What is greeting them? How does it flow? How could we make it better? Just start to brainstorm some ideas and then see where that goes. Because, again, we don't operate in a vacuum. So you put energy towards something, be it mental or you physically order something a little differently, you're going to get change. And oftentimes that change is what we need to grow. So, well,
Hey, Christine, can I say one last thing? Sorry. Even though I've been disorganized most of my life, I've always been a neat freak and a clean freak. And like we were saying, think about this. Would you buy a car if it wasn't clean, like for full price? Like I want, full price for this car if it wasn't clean. If you walked to the dealership, it wasn't organized. The person was shabby, disheveled. I mean, same thing is we have to realize we are a service-oriented business and we have to represent and not be hypocritical. But what I was trying to say is that just little things, like get the wipes. You don't have to scrub your toilet every day unless it needs it, but get the wipes. Just wipe down the rim every day. Wipe down where people sit. Make sure that you have what I found is instead of Febreze, it's a lot cheaper, people. I hope you're listening. Fabric softener and water, and dilute it and shake it up and then spritz. If you have carpet or carpeting in your dojo, that gives it that nice kind of smell that Febreze would, and it kind of gives it a nice little, it's fabric softener, but it's way cheaper than Febreze. Don't buy those warmers. That's really bad, actually, apparently, for people. Get the little toilet tablets that keep the toilet clean for you. But little things like that is going to make it easier for you to stay clean. Because other than that, you don't clean once a week. You got to clean a little every day.
I think that's very true. In fact,
sorry, guys, I don't disagree with everything you just said, but I do disagree with one thing you just said. You must clean your bathroom multiple times a day. After every kid's class, you got to go in that bathroom.
Oh, I do, sir. I'm just saying for everybody else, if you don't want to scrub it every day, that's fine. But yeah, you at least got to wipe it down and do something to it every day. Sorry, sir.
Well, so when you said that, I don't know who all is listening, but yeah, you need to go in your bathroom after every kid's class and multiple times a day, because what you have a parent walk in the door and they use that bathroom, that is an impression that you can't erase.
Yes.
That's true. And don't underestimate the power. Believe me, I struggle with this. We all do, because there's a lot of people going through there. But if you create a system, which we can talk more about, there's going to be another one of these webinars in a couple weeks where we're going to go a little bit more, maybe in some detail or suggestions or hacks or ideas or things. We're still putting together what that's going to be about. But these are all good thoughts, and maybe we'll be able to incorporate a lot of them in there. Ted, I know you had a question. I think we kind of are out of time, though, and I don't really want to go too long, because I don't want to get in trouble. But I know you were asking about, and maybe we can talk offline so we don't hold everybody up unless, now I can't find your question. Let me see if I can go back. How do we keep track when they last tested, when they test next, just based on their stripes lessons? Well, there's a couple different ways. Why don't we chat, and maybe we'll include some of that even in our next webinar, but I'll chat with you offline. Okay, well, thanks everybody for being here today. Again, it was just like a high-level overview on organizing, and I hope you took away from it a couple thoughts in that, you can really make a lot of impact on your overall success, believe it or not, by just taking a look at some small things and removing the clutter and removing it from your mind and putting a system in place, even if it's just the smallest thing, and taking a look with new eyes, the way your students are or the parents coming in the door. And we will continue this conversation. So thank you so much for your time. I hope everybody has an awesome day.